Hey there, appreciate you being here. This is an original story from Hidden Revenge Family, and it took a turn you truly didn't see coming. Let's get into it.
I stood in the corner of my parents' ballroom, holding a glass of cheap sparkling water that tasted like regret. The room smelled of expensive perfume and catered steak. 200 guests laughed too loudly, clinked glasses too often, and pretended they all loved each other. It was my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. They called it a celebration of legacy. I called it a performance. I wore my old U.S. Army dress uniform, not because I wanted to, because it was the only formal outfit I owned that didn't come from a discount rack. The silver threads on the shoulders were faded. The jacket didn't fit quite right anymore, but it was clean, and it reminded me I had once been trusted with national secret satellite intel and decisions that saved lives. Tonight, I wasn't trusted with a seat at the main table. I sat at a side table near the waitstaff beside a bucket of empty champagne bottles. The event planner assumed I was part of the help and asked me if I could clear plates. I said no. She apologized and walked away fast. At least someone here knew embarrassment. My parents, Frank and Vivian Monroe, floated through the room like royalty. My father slapped shoulders and told war stories he had never lived. My mother laughed with women who only called her when they needed gossip or charity auction donations. They didn't look at me, not once. Then the music shifted. The room turned. Phones lifted. Alexis arrived. My younger sister swept in wearing a silver dress that probably cost more than my car. Her lips were glossy, her hair curled perfectly. A photographer she had hired followed her like a pet. Guests parted for her like she was on a red carpet instead of a rented ballroom in Seattle. She waved like a celebrity. She was an influencer. That's what she called herself. I called it unemployed with Wi-Fi. Alexis, darling, my mother rushed to her. They hugged for the cameras. My father kissed her cheek. Not a single glance in my direction. Alexis didn't need to look for me. She knew exactly where I belonged, on the edge. A microphone squealed. My father tapped it proudly. The room hushed. Thank you all for celebrating 40 years of marriage with Vivian and me, he said. Tonight is not just about us. It's about the future of the Monroe family. My mother stepped forward holding an envelope. She smiled like a game show host, revealing a prize. We have decided, she said, to give our entire life savings to our daughter Alexis, to support her purchase of a beautiful new home, a mansion she deserves. Gasps, applause. Someone whistled. Alexis placed a hand on her chest dramatically. Mom, Dad, you shouldn't have. They absolutely had. I did the math instantly. Retirement funds, emergency savings, my father's pension lump sum, my mother's investment account, everything. Gone. Handed over like a crown. No one asked if this was a good idea. No one asked about contracts. No one asked about me. Guests lined up to hug Alexis, compliment her, tell her how proud they were. A woman leaned over and whispered loudly, "You're so lucky to have parents who believe in you." I almost choked on my sparkling water. Alexis finally turned toward my corner. Her eyes locked onto me. The room didn't quiet, but it felt like it did. She walked over heels, clicking on marble. Cameras followed. She stopped in front of my table, staring at my uniform, like it was something found in a thrift store. Well, she said, look who showed up. Some guests laughed, unsure if it was a joke. Alexis never joked without an audience. I stood up because military habit dies hard. Congratulations, I said. That's a generous gift. Her smile sharpened. Cassandra, she said, drawing out my name. You're still wearing that costume. This is a U.S. Army dress uniform, I said. Oh, right, she said, waving a manicured hand. Your little government job. Intelligence or whatever. All those years, and what did it get you? No house, no savings, no followers, just that jacket. A few people chuckled. Someone filmed on their phone. Alexis leaned closer. Such a waste of good genetics, she whispered loudly enough for half the room to hear. You had every advantage and still ended up a failure with no home. My jaw tightened, but I didn't respond. I had spent years in intelligence learning when silence was safer than reaction. Tonight, silence just made me look weak. My mother stepped in, placing a hand on Alexis's arm like she was calming a star performer between scenes. Sweetheart, she said, don't mind your sister. She's always been different. The word they used when I didn't fit the picture-perfect family brand. My father looked at me then. Really looked. His smile dropped slightly. Cassandra, he said, lowering his voice. You should go, I blinked. Go where? This event, my mother said softly, is about celebration. Your presence is Uncomfortable for some guests. Uncomfortable. Not my sister insulting me in front of 200 people. Not handing over their financial future without legal protection. Not turning a family anniversary into a social media launch party. No, my existence was the problem. I took a slow breath. In another life, I had stood in command rooms where one wrong decision meant loss of life. This room felt more dangerous. Understood, I said. I picked up my small bag from the chair. A few guests stared. Most avoided eye contact. Alexis smiled like she had just won an award. As I walked toward the exit, I heard Alexis say loudly, "Some people just aren't meant for success. It's not their fault." Laughter followed me. Applause swelled again around her. The ballroom doors closed behind me. The noise dulled. Cold night air hit my face. I stood outside under the hotel lights, still in my faded uniform, breathing slow and controlled like I had been trained. Inside, they toasted their future. Inside, they celebrated a daughter they believed was their legacy. Outside, I stared at my reflection in the glass door and wondered how a family could be so proud of one child and so eager to erase another. And I wondered something else. Have you ever walked into a room knowing you were the most capable person there and still been treated like you didn't belong? I walked away from the hotel doors and didn't look back. My phone buzzed before I reached the parking lot. A text from my mother. "Come to the house. We need to handle your things tonight. Not, are you okay? Not, let's talk. Just logistics." Like I was an unpaid storage unit they needed cleared before morning. I drove through Seattle streets slick with cold rain. Traffic lights reflected on the windshield like blurred warning signs. By the time I reached my parents' gated community, my uniform collar was damp and my patience was gone. Their house sat at the end of a curved driveway, warm lights glowing behind tall windows. It looked like safety. It wasn't. The front door opened before I rang the bell. Alexis stood there, barefoot, still in her silver dress, champagne flute in hand. Music pulsed inside. The after-party was in full swing. "Well, look who followed directions," she said. I stepped inside. The marble floor was cold. Guests turned to stare, curious to see if tonight's entertainment had a second act. My father appeared from the living room. "Good," he said. "Let's get this over with." They led me past laughing friends, past gift bags and catering trays, past the family photos where I already looked like a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. We stopped in the hallway near the garage. My mother crossed her arms. "You can't stay here anymore," she said. "Not after tonight. People saw how tense things were. It's not healthy." "Healthy?" I repeated. "Yes," she said. "We don't want negativity around Alexis while she's starting her new life." Alexis leaned against the wall, sipping champagne. "I need a peaceful environment," she said, "for my content creation." I waited for the punchline. None came. My father cleared his throat. "You're capable. You'll figure something out. You always do." That was his version of love. Confidence without support, compliments without responsibility. "Fine," I said. "I'll grab my belongings." Alexis laughed. "Already handled." She snapped her fingers. A teenage cousin I barely recognized appeared from the garage, holding 2 large black trash bags. Not suitcases, not boxes, trash bags. Alexis took them from him and walked toward me, heels clicking like gunfire. "Here," she said, thrusting the bags at my chest. "Your junk." I didn't catch them at first. They hit me and slid down. One bag split slightly at the seam. My mother frowned. "Alexis, be careful." "It's trash," Alexis said. "Trash goes in trash bags." I looked at the bulging plastic. "This is everything I own." "Well," Alexis said. "Everything we didn't throw away." A few guests had wandered into the hallway, drawn by the noise. Phones lifted again. Always phones. Alexis raised her voice. "Take your precious grandmother's garbage and go. The one you worshipped like a saint. Grandma Rose. The woman they called senile. The woman they hid in a back bedroom during holidays, so guests wouldn't see her shaking hands. The woman who taught me how to read when my parents were too busy chasing status." I picked up the bags. They were heavier than expected. My father opened the front door. Cold wind rushed in. Rain hit the marble floor. "Good luck, Cassandra," he said. "We hope you find your path." I stepped outside with both bags in my arms. My uniform soaked instantly. The door closed behind me. The lock clicked. Laughter resumed inside. Music turned up. Glasses clinked. I stood on the front steps in the rain, holding 2 trash bags like they were evidence. I walked down the driveway. The gravel bit into my shoes. My shoulders burned. A car passed by on the main road. No one slowed. At the gate, I paused under a streetlight. Water dripped from my hair onto the plastic bags. One corner sagged where the seam had split. I set the bags down and crouched. The torn opening revealed fabric inside. Floral print, old, familiar. I pulled gently. A scarf. Grandma Rose's scarf. The one she wore every winter, even indoors, because she always said houses were never warm enough when love was missing. My throat tightened. I widened the opening and looked inside. More items. A worn leather journal, a wooden rosary, a framed photo of Grandma Rose holding my hand at age 6. My parents had called these hoarder nonsense. To me, they were memory. Proof someone in that house had once seen me. I lifted the second bag. It rustled heavier. Something solid shifted inside. Hard edges. A box, maybe? I didn't open it there. Not on the street. Not under the gate camera that surely recorded every step I took. I tied the torn seam tighter and picked up both bags again. Rain mixed with the cold air. My hands went numb. My shoes squelched. I walked toward the main road and flagged down the first taxi I saw. The driver glanced at my uniform and my bags. "Rough night," he asked. You could say that. He didn't ask questions. That made him my favorite person of the day. We drove to the cheapest motel near the highway, the kind of place with flickering neon and carpet that smelled like lost decisions. I paid in cash. Old habit. Always keep emergency money. Inside the room, I dropped the bags on the bed. Springs creaked. The heater rattled like it wanted to die. I locked the door, checked the window latch. Another habit. Trust is earned. Locks are assumed. I opened the first bag fully and laid Grandma Rose's belongings on the bedspread one by one. Each item like a quiet voice in a room that had been too loud for too long. Then I turned to the second bag. The plastic tore wider as I pulled. Inside was a shoebox wrapped in silver duct tape edges worn like it had been handled many times. Not trash, not random, intentional. I stared at the box, water dripping from my sleeves onto the floor, my hands hovering just above the tape. Training told me to assess before acting. Emotion told me to rip it open. I took a slow breath and pulled the box toward me. I peeled the duct tape slowly, not because I was careful, but because I didn't trust surprises anymore. The last strip came loose. The shoebox lid lifted with a soft sigh, like it had been waiting years for this moment. Inside were letters, handwritten envelopes stacked neatly, Grandma Rose's handwriting uneven, looping, stubborn. On top sat a folded note with my name, Cassandra. I didn't open it yet. Under the letters were plastic-wrapped bundles. Rectangles, tight, heavy. My fingers pressed into one and felt the ridges of paper. I unwrapped a corner. $100 bill stared back at me. I froze. Then pulled the wrapping off fully. Another stack beneath it, and another, and another. I spread them across the bed. The motel's cheap blanket disappeared under a sea of green. I counted. Once, twice, 3 times. $700,000. Not a lucky lottery ticket. Not loose savings. Cash. Carefully preserved. Hidden. Protected. My mind ran scenarios automatically. No bank. No records. No paper trail. Someone had planned this. Grandma Rose had never been broke. She had been invisible by choice. My hands moved to the bottom of the box. Something flat rested beneath the money. A thick envelope, cream-colored, sealed, stamped with a law firm's logo. Marcus Thornton and Associates. I tore it open. Inside was a property deed. I'd seen enough classified documents in my life to recognize authenticity. Watermark, notary stamp, registration code, official county seal. The address printed in bold letters made my breath stall. The mansion, the one my parents had proudly announced. The one Alexis was already painting and filming and calling my dream home. I read the ownership line. Registered owner Cassandra Monroe. Not shared, not partial, sole ownership. I sat back on the bed slowly, as if any sudden movement might change the words on the page. The heater rattled. A car passed outside. Somewhere a door slammed. Normal world sounds in a moment that wasn't normal at all. I checked the document again. Date of registration 3 months before Grandma Rose died. I whispered, "What did you do, Grandma?" My fingers found the note on top of the letters, the one with my name. I opened it. Cassandra. If you are reading this, it means they gave you what they think is trash. That tells me everything I needed to know. I built this family's wealth with my own hands. I watched how they treated kindness like weakness and money like love. I watched how they ignored you because you didn't flatter them, so I planned ahead. This house was never meant for Alexis. I wanted to see if glamour would blind her. It did. I wanted to see if greed would blind your parents. It did. I left you what matters, not because you need money, but because you understand loyalty. Protect yourself. Protect the truth. With love, Rose. My eyes stayed dry. Shock overrides tears. I folded the letter carefully and set it beside the deed. I spread out the rest of the envelopes. Most were addressed to lawyers, some to banks, some to me, dated over several years. Grandma Rose had played a long game. A thought cut through the moment. If Alexis and my parents thought the house was hers, how exactly had they arranged that no one buys a mansion in cash overnight? There were contracts, loans, signatures. I pulled my laptop from my bag and powered it on. The motel Wi-Fi was slow, but it worked. I logged into public property records, typed in the address, the screen loaded. Owner Cassandra Monroe, no liens, no mortgage, a clean transfer. They weren't just mistaken, they were trespassing. I leaned back against the headboard and exhaled. They had thrown me out with garbage and accidentally handed me their throne. But another line in Grandma's letter sat in my mind like a ticking device. Protect the truth. That meant there was more. Always more. I opened the rest of the letters. One envelope held printed emails. Alexis asking Grandma Rose to sign updated management papers. Another had copies of forms with Rose's name written in shaky ink that didn't match her handwriting. Forgery was obvious to anyone trained to spot it. My jaw tightened. Alexis hadn't just manipulated. She had committed crimes. I organized the papers across the bed. Money stacks on one side. Deed centered. Letters fanned out like a case file. Years in military intelligence had taught me how to build a timeline. I started writing dates on a notepad. Alexis visited Grandma more often the last year of her life. Convenient. Alexis convinced my parents Rose was confused. Convenient. Alexis pushed paperwork. Convenient. And then Grandma died quietly. Too quietly. My hand paused mid-note. Rose's medication records. My mother had once complained about pharmacy costs. Alexis had taken over prescription pickups. A memory surfaced. Rose whispering to me months before she died. Your sister worries too much about my pills. At the time, I thought it was harmless. Now it was a siren. I set the pen down. This wasn't only about money. This was a crime scene that had never been investigated. I gathered the documents into piles and slid them back into the box, except for the deed and Grandma's note. Those I kept out. I opened the motel drawer and found a Gideon Bible. I didn't pray, but I needed a flat surface. I placed the deed inside it for safekeeping. Then I picked up my phone and looked at the call log. Missed calls. 3. Mom, Dad, Alexis. They didn't know yet. And that was an advantage. I turned the phone face down. In a matter of hours, I had gone from unwanted daughter to legal owner of their dream. From trash to leverage. From exile to power. And I hadn't even raised my voice once. I didn't sleep. The heater rattled. A couple argued in the next room. Somewhere outside, a siren wailed and faded. None of it mattered. My mind was already in operational mode. I lined the documents on the bed again, this time with purpose. Not emotion, not anger, assessment. In the Army, intelligence work is simple in theory. Collect, verify, connect, expose. People think it's about gadgets and dark rooms. It's mostly about patience and noticing what others ignore. My family had ignored me for years. That was their first mistake. I opened my laptop and built a timeline spreadsheet. Date of Rose's hospital visits. Dates on Alexis's emails. Dates of the deed transfer. Dates of my parents' sudden financial withdrawals. Patterns formed fast. 3 months before Rose died, my parents liquidated part of their retirement fund. 2 weeks later, Alexis emailed a realtor. A week after that, Rose signed management authorization papers. Except the signature didn't match her older letters. The slope of the R was wrong. The pressure points were inconsistent. A shaky imitation, not age-related tremor. I zoomed in on a scanned copy and smiled without humor. Alexis hadn't just faked it. She'd done it badly. Next step, money trail. I searched public court databases. No mortgage under Alexis's name. No approved loan. No credit-backed purchase. which meant only one thing: she had convinced my parents to pay. I pulled my phone and checked my bank app. My parents had once added me as an emergency contact on their shared account. They forgot to remove it when they stopped speaking to me. I still had read-only access. There it was, a wire transfer, their entire savings, sent to a title company, the same week as the deed transfer. My father, a man who once refused to buy name-brand cereal because it was financially irresponsible, had just handed over his future to a daughter who bought handbags, like disposable cups. I stared at the screen and shook my head. Greed makes smart people stupid. Pride keeps them blind. I copied everything: screenshots, transaction IDs, dates, evidence folder, habit. Then I leaned back and finally let myself feel one thing. Not sadness, disgust. I brewed motel coffee that tasted like burnt rubber and sat at the small table opening Grandma Rose's medical papers. Pharmacy receipts, dosage schedules, a note from her doctor reminding caregivers not to skip medication because of heart risk. I checked the dates. 3 refill pickups were signed by Alexis. 2 of those refills never showed corresponding dosage logs. Missing days. I didn't need to be a doctor to understand what that meant. My hand tightened around the coffee cup. Alexis hadn't just stolen money, she had sped up death. I set the cup down carefully so I wouldn't crush it. Controlled movements, controlled breathing. Anger is useful only if you don't let it drive. I needed professional backup, not revenge, precision. I searched the law firm name on the deed. Marcus Thornton and Associates. Downtown Seattle, estate law, trust litigation, high-end. I called. A receptionist answered with a voice that cost more than my motel room. I explained I had documents from Rose Monroe's estate and needed an urgent appointment. I didn't beg. I stated facts. Another habit. She booked me for noon. I packed the shoebox into my bag. Cash stayed wrapped. Deed inside the Bible, letters in a folder. I checked out of the motel and walked to my car. Rain had stopped. The sky was the color of dull metal. I drove into the city, parked near the law office, and waited in the lobby, surrounded by marble and quiet money. Marcus Thornton came out himself. Mid-50s, sharp suit, eyes that missed nothing. "Miss Monroe," he said, "please come in." Inside his office, I laid everything on his desk without speaking. He looked through the deed first, then the letters, then the forged signatures, then the pharmacy logs. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Your grandmother was thorough," he said finally. "She wanted the house to go to me," I said. "Legally." "It already has," he replied. "This deed is registered. You are the sole owner. No one else has a legal claim." I let that settle. "What about the money my parents sent?" I asked. "Gone," he said. "Voluntarily transferred, unless fraud is proven." I slid the forged documents forward. He nodded slowly. "Fraud may be the least of their problems." "What do you mean?" He opened a drawer and pulled out a USB drive. "Your grandmother recorded a statement before she passed," he said. "She told me to release it only if certain conditions were met. One of them appears to have occurred." He plugged it into his computer and hit play. Rose's voice filled the room, fragile, clear. "If you are hearing this, it means Alexis attempted to seize what she did not earn. She has already cut my medication without my consent. I fear what she may do next. I leave this record so there is no doubt about my wishes and no doubt about what has been done to me." I closed my eyes for 1 second, just one. Marcus turned off the recording. "This," he said, "is evidence. Combined with the medical logs, it establishes potential criminal intent. If you wish, we can contact authorities." "Not yet," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "May I ask why?" "Because they still think I'm homeless," I said. "Power is best used when the other side doesn't know you have it." A faint smile tugged at his mouth. "I see your background wasn't wasted. I need to understand the full financial situation," I said. "What liabilities exist? What contracts were signed?" "Everything," he nodded. "We'll obtain records." Quietly. "Good," I said. "And I want no contact with them yet. No warnings." Marcus folded his hands. "You are in a strong position, Ms. Monroe, but strength without control can become cruelty." "I'm not interested in cruelty," I said. "I'm interested in truth." When I left his office, I felt lighter. Not because I was happy, because the fog had lifted. Every step now had a direction. I walked down the sidewalk, blending into the crowd, just another person in a gray city. My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Alexis, incoming call." I didn't answer. I kept walking. I let the phone ring until it stopped, then slid it back into my pocket. and kept walking like it hadn't mattered. By evening, I was sitting in a cheap diner booth with a cup of black coffee and a plan. Not a revenge plan, a containment plan. When you deal with unstable assets, you don't strike immediately. You observe. You let them expose themselves. My phone buzzed again. "Dad," I answered. "Where the hell are you?" he snapped. "Safe," I said. "You disappeared." My mother cut in on speaker. "We've been calling all day." I waited. Silence makes people fill space with truth. Finally, Alexis spoke. Her voice was sugary. "Cassandra, we need your help, urgently." I almost laughed. "My help," I said. "Yes," my mother said. "There's paperwork finalizing the house, closing fees, filing costs. Just $5,000. Your sister's accounts are temporarily tied up." Temporarily tied up. That was a creative way to describe drowning in debt. Dad cleared his throat. "You owe us. We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head." I stared at the diner's laminated menu, suddenly grateful for its honesty. Pancakes cost what they said. No emotional fine print. "I don't have $5,000, I said. Alexis scoffed. "You always say you don't have money. Maybe if you'd chosen a real career instead of playing soldier," I cut her off. "I work at a warehouse," I said. "Night shifts. I barely pay for a room." It wasn't true. I had money, cash, a house, leverage. But truth was a weapon best kept hidden. Gray rock. No emotion, no argument, no defense. Just dull reality. My mother sighed loudly. "So you're really going to abandon your family when we need you?" Silence again. Dad spoke softer, calculated. "If you can't help financially, at least show some support. Call your sister, encourage her. She's under stress." "I'm tired," I said. "I have work tonight." Then I ended the call. No dramatic goodbye. No anger. No explanation. I paid for the coffee and left the diner. Control wasn't loud. It was steady. Over the next days, I built my cover. A cheap rented room, a prepaid phone number, a voicemail greeting saying I was unavailable due to night shifts. When they called, I answered rarely. When I did, my voice stayed flat, distant, uninteresting. Gray rock. They stopped yelling. Then they started complaining. Then they started begging. Predictable. One afternoon, my phone buzzed with a video message from Alexis. Curiosity isn't always weakness. I opened it. She stood inside the mansion. Phone held high sunlight pouring through tall windows. Workers in white overalls painted a large room behind her. Buckets of paint, drop cloths, a ladder. "Guess what this room is going to be," she said, smiling wide. My walk-in designer closet. Floor-to-ceiling shoe walls, vanity lighting. The perfect space for unboxing videos. She turned the camera toward the window. A reading nook sat beneath it. Built-in shelves, a cushioned bench, Grandma Rose's room. She had told me once quietly, "When I'm gone, that room should belong to you. A place to think, a place to rest." Alexis didn't know that. Or maybe she did, and didn't care. She flipped the camera back to her face. "Some people are just meant for luxury," she said. "Not everyone can handle a home like this." The video ended with her blowing a kiss. I didn't reply. I saved the video to a secure folder. Evidence. Marcus called later that day. "We pulled your parents' financial records," he said. "Their retirement accounts are nearly empty. They're now personally liable for several short-term loans taken under Alexis's name with them as guarantors." "How bad?" I asked. "If Alexis defaults, they lose everything. If the house is seized, they still owe." I stared at the saved video thumbnail. "Do they know any of this?" I asked. "Not fully," he said. "Alexis has been filtering information. She told them sponsorship deals would cover payments. None exist." I closed my eyes once. "Not long, no dramatics. Continue," I said. He paused. "We also verified pharmacy logs. The medication gaps are documented. Combined with the audio recording, law enforcement will take interest." "Not yet," I said again. Marcus didn't argue. "Understood. One more thing. Your parents called the office today." I blinked. "About what?" "They wanted to confirm whether any assets remained in Rose's estate," he said. I told them all matters were settled. What did they say? They sounded worried. Worried. Good. Fear loosens tongues. Silence tightens traps. That night, I sat on the narrow bed in my rented room and laid out my documents again. Deed, letters, forged signatures, financial records, video of the painted room. Every piece fit. Every thread led forward. I didn't hate them. Hate clouds judgment. I didn't need to punish them. Consequences would do that on their own. All I had to do was choose the moment and stay invisible until then. My phone buzzed again. Mom this time. I let it ring. I watched the phone vibrate itself silent, then turned it off completely. No distractions, no interruptions. If I was going to move forward, I needed clean space in my head. The next morning I met Marcus again. He didn't offer coffee this time. He didn't waste small talk either. He simply closed his office door, locked it, and placed a digital recorder on the desk. "There's more," he said. He pressed play. Grandma Rose's voice filled the room again, softer than the first recording, but sharper in intention. "If you are hearing this," she said, "then Cassandra has the truth in her hands. I want it known that Alexis Monroe deliberately interfered with my medical treatment. She withheld my heart medication on multiple occasions. I confronted her. She said I was in the way of her future." My fingers curled into a fist under the table. Rose continued, "I did not die peacefully. I died aware, and I prepared accordingly." The recording stopped. Marcus exhaled slowly. "This statement is admissible. Combined with pharmacy data and the forged documents, this is no longer a civil dispute. This is a criminal matter." I stared at the blank wall behind him. "This isn't about money anymore," I said. "No," Marcus replied. "It's about accountability." I thought of Alexis tossing trash bags at me, of my parents closing the door, of Grandma Rose whispering stories to me while my mother entertained guests in the next room. She planned everything, I said quietly. "Yes," Marcus said. "She built a legal trap, she left bait, and she trusted you to spring it only when necessary." I let that sink in. Then I asked, "What happens if we go to the police today?" "Alexis will be arrested," Marcus said. "Your parents will be investigated for financial complicity, possibly negligence. The house will be seized as evidence. Media attention will follow. Media attention, Alexis's oxygen supply." But Marcus added, "Your parents will likely lose everything immediately, and Alexis may negotiate reduced charges if she cooperates." I didn't like that. I didn't want chaos. I wanted clarity. I wanted truth spoken in a room full of people who thought they had buried it. "Not yet," I said. Marcus studied me. "You have something else in mind." "I received something in the mail," I said. "Yesterday." I slid an envelope across his desk. He opened it. A glossy invitation card. "Alexis Monroe invites you to the housewarming and engagement celebration, Friday, 7 p.m., Monroe Estate." Engagement. She hadn't even told me she had a boyfriend serious enough for that. Then again, Alexis didn't need love. She needed an audience. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "She sent this to you." "No," I said. "She sent it to my parents." My name was crossed out. "They forwarded it to guilt me into showing up." Marcus smiled once. Poetic. I leaned back in my chair. "They're going to gather everyone who matters to them," I said. "Friends, business contacts, family, influencers, people who believe Alexis is the future of the Monroe name." Marcus nodded slowly. "A public environment," he said, "where facts can't be hidden later." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He folded his hands. "If you walk into that house, you must be prepared for every outcome. Emotional escalation, law enforcement involvement, permanent consequences." "I've been preparing for years," I said. Marcus slid the recorder toward me. "Take this. If anything happens, press record. Always." I placed it in my pocket. When I left the office, the city felt different. Not hostile, just neutral, like a chessboard waiting for the next move. I drove past the mansion that evening. Tall gates, fresh paint, landscaping trucks. A banner on the balcony. "Welcome to the new era." Alexis's era. I parked across the street and watched workers carry furniture through the front doors. Expensive, fragile, unaware that none of it legally belonged to the woman directing them. My phone turned back on. Notifications flooded in. Missed calls, texts. "Mom, please call us. We're under a lot of stress. Dad, Alexis needs family support right now. Don't be bitter, Alexis. If you show up Friday, don't embarrass yourself." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I opened a new contact in my phone. Detective Luis Ortega, Major Crimes. Marcus had given me the number earlier just in case. I didn't call yet. Not because I hesitated. Because timing mattered. Later that night, I sat in my rented room, Grandma Rose's scarf around my neck. Not for warmth, for grounding. I laid everything out on the bed again. The deed, the recording device, the folder of evidence, the invitation card. I rehearsed no speeches, no dramatic lines, No emotional pleas. Facts speak for themselves. I only needed to hold the microphone long enough for the room to hear them. My phone buzzed one more time. A new video from Alexis. She stood at the mansion's entrance this time, a diamond ring on her finger. Her fiancé smiling beside her like a man who had no idea what storm he'd walked into. "Big night Friday," she said. "Hope you're not too busy stacking boxes to come." I watched once, then deleted it. Evidence saved elsewhere. I turned off the lights, lay down and closed my eyes. Not to rest, to focus. Because Friday wasn't about revenge. It was about revealing what had been buried. And once truth enters a room, no one walks out the same. I stepped out of my car and pulled the collar of my plain black coat up against the cold. The mansion glowed ahead of me. Warm golden lights, polished windows. A driveway lined with rented luxury cars. Valets hurried like obedient ants. Music pulsed through the walls. Laughter floated into the night air. Alexis had built herself a kingdom of glass. Tonight she planned to sit on the throne. I walked past the valet stand. No one recognized me without the uniform. No one stopped me. To them I was just another guest who didn't matter. Inside the entrance hall smelled of fresh paint and expensive candles. Marble floors reflected the chandelier's light so brightly it almost hurt to look at. A banner hung above the staircase. "Welcome to the new era of the Monroe family." Subtlety had never been Alexis's strength. A hostess with a tablet smiled. Name Cassandra Monroe. Her smile froze for half a second. Then she forced it back. "Right this way." She didn't offer to take my coat. I walked into the main hall. The crowd was bigger than at the anniversary party. Influencers, realtors, local business owners, people who clapped whenever someone important entered a room. Cameras floated on gimbals. Ring lights glowed in corners. A live stream screen showed Alexis greeting guests at the far end of the room like a presidential candidate. My parents stood beside her. My mother wore a champagne-colored gown and a smile that looked painted on. My father shook hands like he was still proud of himself. They didn't look like people on the edge of financial ruin. They looked like winners who didn't know the scoreboard was fake. Alexis spotted me across the room. Her eyes widened just slightly. Then she turned to the nearest camera and whispered something with a grin. The cameraman swung toward me. Perfect. I walked forward at a steady pace. No rush, no hesitation. Just a woman entering a building she legally owned. Guests moved aside automatically, not out of respect, but curiosity. People sensed tension like sharks sense blood. Alexis stepped away from her fiancé and met me halfway. "Well," she said, lips stretched tight, "you actually came." I didn't hug her. I didn't smile. I just looked at her hand. The diamond ring caught the light like a signal flare. "Congratulations," I said. Engagements are serious commitments. Her fiancé, a tall man with expensive shoes and nervous eyes, extended his hand. "I'm Ryan," he said. "Nice to meet you." I shook his hand. "Cassandra." His grip loosened slightly when he heard the name. He glanced at Alexis. She laughed too loudly. "She's my sister," Alexis said. "The one who hates family events." I didn't correct her. Let the room keep believing the version they liked. It made the contrast sharper later. My mother appeared, champagne flute in hand. "You look well," she said carefully. "I am," I said. My father joined us. He cleared his throat. "Cassandra, let's not cause a scene tonight. This is important for Alexis." "I wouldn't dream of causing a scene," I said. Which was true. Scenes were emotional. I was here for exposure. A bell chimed. A man in a suit stepped onto a small stage near the staircase. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "please gather. Our hostess has a few words." Music lowered. People turned. Phones lifted again. Alexis walked up the steps to the landing framed by the banner and chandelier. Her fiancé stood beside her. My parents flanked her like loyal guards. She took the microphone. "Welcome," she said, voice sweet as sugar water. "Tonight marks the beginning of a new chapter for the Monroe family. This home represents growth, success, and vision. Applause." She raised her ring hand. "And I'm thrilled to announce my engagement to Ryan. Together we'll build something extraordinary." More applause. Flashing lights, a chorus of congratulations. Alexis lifted her chin. "I want to thank my parents," she said, "for believing in me, for investing in my future, for knowing that sometimes one child carries the legacy forward." Her eyes flicked toward me. Quick, sharp, intentional. Some guests followed her gaze. Whispers sparked. The camera feed cut briefly to me on the large screen, then back to Alexis. Whoever ran the live stream knew drama when they saw it. Alexis smiled wider. Not everyone is built for success, she said. Some people choose simpler paths, and that's okay. We all play our roles. A few awkward laughs. My mother's smile tightened. My father stared straight ahead, like a man hoping a problem might solve itself if he didn't look at it. Alexis lifted a pair of golden scissors from a silver tray. And now, she said, to officially open this home, I stepped forward. Not running, not rushing, just walking. I moved through the crowd, past shocked faces, past raised phones, past whispered names. I reached the foot of the staircase. Alexis paused mid-breath. I looked up at her. Before you cut anything, I said I'd like a moment. The crowd murmured. A microphone assistant hesitated, then handed me a second mic, assuming this was part of the program. It wasn't. Alexis forced a laugh. Oh my God, Cassandra. This isn't the time. I turned toward the audience. My name is Cassandra Monroe, I said. Former U.S. Army intelligence officer. And the legal owner of this property. Silence hit the room like a power outage. Alexis froze. My mother blinked rapidly. My father's face drained of color. I kept my voice level. This house was registered 3 months ago under my name. Not Alexis's, not my parents'. Mine. Murmurs, gasps. A dropped glass shattered on the marble floor. Alexis stepped closer, smile gone. That's not funny, she hissed. I'm not joking, I said. I raised my free hand. Marcus Thornton stepped out from the side entrance, accompanied by 2 security officers from the venue, unsure whose side they were on. He held a folder. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus said, voice calm and professional. I am attorney Marcus Thornton. This is the registered deed for this property. He lifted the document high enough for cameras to zoom in. My name sat printed in bold black letters. Cassandra Monroe. Alexis grabbed the mic from my hand. This is insane, she said, laughing wildly. My parents bought this house for me, everyone knows that. Marcus stepped forward. Your parents transferred funds? Yes. But ownership was assigned by the estate of Rose Monroe. Sole beneficiary, Cassandra Monroe. My mother's champagne flute slipped from her fingers and shattered. My father whispered, Rose. I took the microphone back gently. There's more, I said. I opened a second folder. And this, I said, is documentation of forged signatures, financial fraud, and interference with medical treatment. Alexis's breathing changed. Fast, shallow. I looked directly at her. You didn't just steal money, I said. You tried to erase a woman who saw through you. No one moved. No one spoke. No one blinked. Not yet. But every eye in the room had shifted. And every camera was recording. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The room was quiet enough to hear someone's phone vibrate on silent mode. Alexis stared at the deed in Marcus's hand, as if it might burst into flames and save her. It didn't. Paper doesn't lie. People do, Ryan. Her fiancé leaned toward her. Alexis, he whispered, what is she talking about?